Welcome back to NBA Stories, the channel where we dive deep into the legends, rivalries, and hidden narratives that shape the game we love. Today, we are talking about one of the quietest killers in NBA history. A superstar who dominated an entire era without needing viral highlights, chest-thumping celebrations, or dramatic headlines. This is the story of Tim Duncan, and how he ruled the league without ever really looking like he was trying to. When you think of dominance in the NBA, you probably think of monstrous dunks, logo threes, and wild crossovers that send defenders flying. You think of players who scream after big plays, who sell their greatness in every gesture, every celebration, every interview. But Tim Duncan broke that template completely. He controlled games not through spectacle, but through total mastery of the boring stuff everyone else took for granted. From the moment he entered the league in 1997, Tim Duncan looked like he had been playing in the NBA for 10 years already. His game was simple, calm, and brutally efficient. No wasted motion, no unnecessary moves, no need to prove anything to anyone. He just walked onto the court, did the right thing on almost every possession, and slowly squeezed the life out of the opponent. Duncan's scoring was never about highlight reels. He did not jump out of the gym. He was not a human mixtape like Kobe or Jordan. Instead, he turned the backboard into his best friend. That classic bank shot from the left block became one of the most unstoppable weapons in the league. While other stars stretched their games outward to the three-point line, Duncan made a living in the mid-post and low post. He used angles, footwork, and patience. He faced up, read the defender, took one or two deliberate dribbles, and then calmly released a shot off the glass. It was not sexy, but it was devastating. You might not remember every individual basket, but you remember looking at the box score at the end of the night and seeing that Duncan quietly had 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 4 blocks. What made Duncan different is that he never rushed the game. He played at his own speed, almost like the game was happening in slow motion around him. Defenders would jump at his fakes, bite on his counters, and get frustrated that someone who moved this slowly was still getting whatever he wanted. He did not beat you with speed. He beat you with decisions. And that is where his true dominance began. Duncan's genius was not just in his skill set, but in his mind. He understood spacing, timing, and matchups at an elite level. He knew when to seal his man deep. He knew when to pass out of a double team early. He knew when to kick the ball to a shooter and when to repost and demand it back. If you watch Spurs film from those championship years, you rarely see Duncan forcing shots out of ego. He did not hunt stats. He hunted good possessions. Sometimes that meant he scored. Sometimes that meant he screened hard, rolled to the paint, drew the help, and let Tony Parker or Manu Ginobili finish the play. He understood something that many stars never fully embrace. If the team wins, your greatness speaks for itself. Defensively, though, is where Tim Duncan's quiet dominance hits another level. He was not a loud shot blocker who tried to pin everything against the glass just to make the crowd scream. Instead, he mastered the art of positioning. He was always in the right spot. He cut off drives before they became layups. He showed help at just the right moment and recovered without fouling. With Duncan on the floor, opponents were constantly second-guessing themselves in the paint. Should I go all the way to the rim? Should I pull up early? Should I pass out? That split second of hesitation is often the difference between a clean look and a bad shot. Duncan created that hesitation over and over again. He anchored one of the greatest defensive cultures in league history. The Spurs, under Greg Popovich, were always near the top of the league in defensive rating, and Duncan was the foundation of that identity. He communicated. He pointed out actions. He helped younger players like Kawhi Leonard and Tiago Splitter understand where to be and when to rotate. He might not have yelled like Kevin Garnett, but his impact was just as terrifying. It is easy to overlook Duncan because his style did not fit modern entertainment. He did not embrace drama. He rarely gave quotable sound bites. He wore the same expression, whether it was a Game 7 or a preseason game. But that consistency is exactly what made him unstoppable. Game after game, season after season, he brought the same level of focus. He did not depend on emotion or momentum to play well. He depended on habits. And habits are what sustain greatness over nearly 2 decades. Look at his playoff resume, and you see the truth of his impact. Multiple championships across different eras of basketball. He won when the game was slower and more physical. He was still relevant when the league shifted towards spacing, pace, and perimeter play. He found ways to adjust as his athleticism declined. He transformed from the clear number one option to a stabilizing veteran presence, still anchoring the defense and making big plays when it mattered. That evolution is another form of dominance. Many stars struggle to accept a reduced role. Their game is built entirely around being the man. Once their explosion fades, their impact fades with it. Tim Duncan was different. He allowed the offense to shift toward Tony Parker's penetration and Manis' creativity. Later, he allowed Kawhi to step into the spotlight. He did not fight the changing of the guard. He guided it. This team-first mentality is a huge reason why his dominance never looked like domination to casual fans. There were no constant MVP campaigns fueled by self-promotion. There were no controversies demanding attention. He simply kept winning. He made his teammates better. He lifted an entire franchise from small market obscurity to global respect. The San Antonio Spurs were not supposed to be the center of the NBA universe. They did not have the glamour of Los Angeles or the legacy of Boston. They did not have the chaos of New York or the narrative weight of Chicago. But with Tim Duncan as their anchor, they became the standard for how to build, maintain, and sustain excellence. Under Duncan's leadership, the Spurs became the ultimate system team. Ball movement, unselfishness, and trust. But here is the key. Systems do not work without a star who is willing to sacrifice. You cannot preach unselfishness if your best player is not living it. Duncan lived it every night. He took less money at times to keep the team competitive. He accepted fewer shots so that his teammates could grow. He never needed to remind anyone that it was his team. Everyone just knew, because when things got serious, the ball would always find its way back to him, and he would deliver. There is also something deeply unique about how Tim Duncan handled pressure. He never looked rattled. He never looked overwhelmed. In the biggest games, he was often the calmest person in the building. That calmness translated directly to his teammates. When your leader is unshakable, everyone else feels safer. Think about all the iconic moments that surround other superstars. For Duncan, his legacy is not built on one single shot or dramatic speech. It is built on 1,000 small decisions, 1,000 rotations, 1,000 bank shots, 1,000 unselfish passes. His greatness is cumulative, not explosive. And that is what makes his story so powerful. We live in a time where greatness is often measured in highlights, social media clips, and narratives built by algorithms. Tim Duncan's career reminds us that there is another way. You can become an all-time great by being relentlessly solid, by being reliable, by being the one person your franchise can always count on, even when nobody is paying attention. Now, let us take a moment and really feel what Tim Duncan meant to the game. Close your eyes and imagine a road playoff game. The crowd hostile, the pressure heavy, the season on the line, the Spurs trail by a few points, the offense is stuck, and the noise is rising. And then Duncan catches the ball on the left block. He takes a single dribble, turns, and softly kisses the ball off the glass. No roar, no flex, just 2 points, just calm in the middle of chaos. That is the emotion that Duncan gave Spurs fans for almost 20 years. A quiet kind of security. A feeling that no matter what was happening, as long as number 21 was on the court, they still had a chance. He was not a superhero in the traditional loud, explosive sense. He was more like a shield. Always there, always strong, always doing the right thing. For many fans, especially those who love fundamentals and team play, Tim Duncan is not just a great player. He is almost like a blueprint of how basketball is supposed to be played. He showed that you do not need to scream to lead. You do not need to chase cameras to be remembered. You do not need to talk about greatness when you can quietly demonstrate it for nearly 2 decades. In the conversation about the greatest power forwards of all time, Tim Duncan sits at the top for many people. Not because he was the flashiest, not because he chased numbers, but because when you look at winning, consistency, and impact on both ends of the floor, it is hard to argue against him. He was the complete package. Offense, defense, leadership, humility. A franchise cornerstone who never made it about himself. In a way, Tim Duncan's lack of highlights becomes the highlight itself. He is the test of whether we truly understand the game. If you watch only the most viral clips, you might underestimate him. But if you watch possession by possession, quarter by quarter, series by series, you begin to see the truth. This man controlled outcomes. He tilted the floor in his team's favor without ever needing to shout about it. His legacy lives on in the players and teams that value substance over style. You see it in stars who buy into defensive schemes, in veterans who take less money to keep their core together, in franchises that prioritize culture, continuity, and accountability. That is Tim Duncan's fingerprint on modern basketball. At the end of the day, Tim Duncan dominated without highlighting because his game was never about the moment. It was about the full picture. He understood that greatness is not defined by a single play, but by what you bring every night for years and years. He built a career not on fireworks, but on foundation. And those foundations turned into banners hanging from the rafters in San Antonio. If you are a young player watching this, Tim Duncan's journey carries a powerful message. You may never be the most athletic. You may never be the most hyped. But you can still become great by mastering fundamentals, embracing unselfishness, and staying consistent. You can dominate games without making them about you. You can lead without shouting, and that is why Tim Duncan will always be one of the most respected figures in basketball history. Players, coaches, and serious fans know what he did. They know how hard it is to be that good for that long while staying that humble. His career is proof that you can be both low-key and legendary at the same time. Thank you for watching this episode of NBA Story. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Tim Duncan and how he dominated without needing the spotlight, we would love to hear your thoughts. Do you think he is the greatest power forward of all time? Which Duncan moment do you remember most? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with other basketball fans, and join the conversation. And of course, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another NBA story. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.